What is the update you can give us?
Well, as you say, the key development this evening is that the German Chancellor came into contact with a doctor on Friday who was tested positive for the virus. So she is self-isolating, which of course comes at a pretty difficult time for Germany as it's grappling with some more stringent measures to get people to stay apart, banning gatherings of more than 2 people, and with bars and restaurants shutting, and a fair bit of discussion in Germany about whether they need to move to a full lockdown. Tomorrow, the German finance minister will be chairing cabinet meeting. Angela Merkel will have to dial into that by video conference. And more broadly, we've got EU finance ministers and foreign ministers both holding video conferences tomorrow, because what we're seeing is an increased explosion in the number of casualties. More than 2,000 people killed this weekend by the virus in Italy and Spain, despite the increased containment measures and despite the economic and fiscal money being thrown at this thing across Europe. We're still seeing cases increase in some countries. So the real question that governments will need to ponder this week is when or how the kind of containment measures they're putting in place will start to show some kind of result.
Yeah, Ros, and as you mentioned, the situation in Italy continuing to deteriorate, Spain as well, Italy seeing another 650 deaths. Are there any more measures that are going to be taken by governments there?
Well, Italy, of course, is at the epicenter, really, for Europe at the moment. The virus has killed nearly 5,500 people there so far. What we're seeing is they're trying to curtail travel further within the country because as a lot of industry shuts down and the country shuts down in the north, what we're seeing is concern that workers with family members, say in the south, will try and head there to stay there for the duration and perhaps bring the disease with them. So we've got governors of some of those districts in the south calling on the national government to block the flow of citizens within the country itself. So that's really the next step that we're seeing. The further closure of parks, of course, in Italy. People are no longer allowed outside even to go for a jog and having to carry paperwork if they attempt to leave their houses. Much more than that, there's not really much more that Italy itself can do at this point.
I want to float on over from Italy and go to the UK. We had a press conference on Friday from Boris Johnson and the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Are we now considering a more lockdown approach for the UK?
Well, that's right. And we saw the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, today saying that he's quite frustrated, as is the Mayor of London, that despite the containment measures being put in place here in the UK, especially in London, where, of course, the cases are naturally the highest, that people are still going out and about too much. They're gathering in groups when they've been told not to, and they're not practicing the kind of social distancing that the government has been encouraging. So even though cafes and restaurants and bars and whatnot are shut here in London, people are gathering in parks because it's actually been a sunny weekend for a change and having picnics or playing sports together. So certainly you've been seeing gatherings in parks near where I live in London as a result. So some concern today about that, and the government saying, look, if people don't start to act the way that they're being told to and acting responsibly, that the UK will have to think about a much more serious lockdown to come.